Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're sifting through a really diverse set of articles, editorials, opinions, science pieces, and more. Our goal, as always, is to pull out the core insights for you.
That's right. We're covering a lot of ground today, from the UN's big anniversary and its challenges, right through to climate strategies, legal questions about international bodies, and even some stark economic lessons.
Exactly. So let's jump straight in. First up, the United Nations. It's turning 80. An institution born from tragedy, meant to prevent war, right?
Absolutely. It wasn't designed as some kind of monument to power, more like a practical tool for peace. Having spent nearly 3 decades inside the system, from 78 to '07, I saw it evolve firsthand.
Yeah, that evolution, it's had its highs and lows, hasn't it? Think Rwanda, Srebrenica, terrible failures.
Terrible, but also successes, East Timor, Namibia, places where the UN really did help foster self-determination. The world it operates in now, though, is just fundamentally different from 1945.
Completely different. We've gone from that post-war bipolar setup through American dominance to today's, well, it feels fragmented, multipolar landscape.
Precisely. And that fragmentation has really chipped away at the original consensus. Those core ideas, sovereign equality, collective security, they're being challenged constantly.
And nowhere is that clearer than the Security Council, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
It feels like it's stuck in the past.
Frozen in time is the phrase used. It reflects 1945 power dynamics, not 2025 realities, which obviously creates a major legitimacy problem.
Which leads directly to India's push for a permanent seat.
And it's a very strong case. You're talking about the world's biggest democracy, most populous nation, a huge contributor to peacekeeping, a rising economic force.
Its exclusion feels like a major anomaly, doesn't it? Undermines the Council's claim to represent the world.
It definitely undermines its effectiveness, yes. So looking forward, what needs to change for the UN to stay relevant? The sources point to three main things.
Okay, what are they?
First, UNSC reform. It just has to happen for the Council to be effective. Second, the UN as a whole needs to invest in being more agile, streamlining, using digital tools better, reacting faster.
And the third.
Reclaiming its moral voice. Speaking truth to power, which is harder than ever. And all this while it's facing serious money problems.
Yeah, the financial constraints. Member states not paying up, like the U.S. forcing staff cuts, scaling back programs.
It's deeply ironic, isn't it? The very mechanism designed to maintain stability is being starved by some of the key players. It really brings home that famous quote from Doug Hammarskjöld.
The one about not taking mankind to heaven, but saving it from hell.
Exactly. A pragmatic, necessary, but often thankless task.
Okay, so if cooperation is tough between nations, what about the organizations facilitating that cooperation? Like the UN or SARC, are they above the law in the countries where they operate? This whole issue of IO immunity.
It's a really critical question, especially now. The basic idea behind immunity is functional necessity. IOs need protection from endless lawsuits in host countries to do their jobs effectively.
Makes sense on paper.
Yeah.
But what happens when an IO messes up, acts unfairly, maybe discriminates against its own staff? Can they just hide behind that immunity?
That's the million-dollar question, and where the legal ground is shifting. Especially in employment cases, courts used to almost automatically uphold immunity.
But not anymore.
Not always. Now, courts are increasingly looking at the human rights impact. They're asking, if we deny jurisdiction, does the person have any other adequate way to seek justice? If not, denying access to courts could be a denial of justice itself.
So the IO has to prove it offers a fair internal process.
Exactly, an adequate one. And that standard isn't new. It goes back to a 1954 ICJ case. But what adequate means is getting tougher scrutiny.
How so? What makes a process adequate in the eyes of, say, a national court?
Well, courts are looking for real substance. Independence and impartiality are key, like the Italian Supreme Court insisted in the Drago case. Guaranteeing a fair trial process, as a Belgian court highlighted in Siedler, it's not just about having something on paper.
But isn't there a tension there? A national court judging the adequacy of an international body's process. That sounds like the interference immunity was meant to prevent.
There is a tension, absolutely. But the argument from the court side is that fundamental human rights, like access to justice, can sometimes outweigh functional necessity, especially if the alternative is, well, grave injustice.
Okay. And what if the IO uses arbitration?
Then the bar is even higher. Just saying we offer arbitration isn't enough. They need to show it actually works. Is there a clear mechanism? Are the arbitrators truly independent? Is it linked to a proper arbitral institution? And crucially, have they explicitly waived immunity regarding court oversight of that specific arbitration?
Wow, okay, so it's quite detailed.
It has to be. The takeaway is clear. Respect immunity, yes, but don't let it become a shield for abuse of power.
Right. Moving from legal frameworks to climate action, COP30 is coming up in Brazil. And the mood seems different this time. Less focus on big new promises from the usual players, more on
Yeah.
actually doing things.
That's the sense, yes. The US, the EU seem a bit hesitant on leading with new pledges. So the focus shifts to implementation. Which raises the question, is this India's moment to step up and lead globally?
And the analysis we looked at has different takes on that.
Kind of a split view. You've got Hisham Mundal seeing the glass half full. He points to an axis of good emerging, like India and Europe working together on tech. He thinks India's strength is its steady approach climate, isn't the huge political football domestically that it is elsewhere. So an implementation COP plays to that strength.
Okay, that's one view. What's the counter?
Ulka Kelkar brings the focus squarely onto finance, particularly for adaptation. Money flows to mitigation, solar, wind, EVs relatively easily. But adaptation, things like making farming more resilient, protecting water sources, that's desperately underfunded.
And developing countries need help putting together actual projects for that funding, right?
Precisely. They need a pipeline of bankable projects, and the numbers are staggering. She cites the need for something like $1.3 trillion a year in climate finance by 2035. That means greening the whole financial system, private banks, MDBs, everything.
You mentioned blended finance earlier. How does that fit in?
It's crucial for adaptation. Blended finance uses public or philanthropic money, which can take more risk to make projects attractive for private investment. Basically, the public funds de-risk the investment enough for private capital to come in. It's seen as essential for those adaptation projects where returns are less obvious.
And the idea that action is driven by self-interest, not just global goodwill.
Yeah, that's a strong point in the sources. China pushes green tech because it sees it as the future industrial engine. Indian companies invest because shareholders demand it. That internal drive is seen as more reliable than relying on international generosity.
What about India's own track record?
Kelkar makes a really important point here, one often missed in the West. India's power sector emissions have essentially stopped growing, flattened out. Thanks to the huge push on renewables, that's a major decoupling of energy growth from emissions growth.
That is significant. So, concrete steps for India before COP30. What's recommended?
Mundal suggests making the link between renewables and green hydrogen explicit in India's climate pledges, the NDCs. Send a clear signal. Kelkar focuses on needing long-term targets for industry, steel, cement, those tough sectors.
And for adaptation.
Create a specific wish list of priority projects, things like solar-powered cold chains for agriculture. Design them specifically to attract that blended finance we talked about. Make it easy for investors to see where the need and opportunity lie.
Okay, let's shift focus now to something deeply personal: mastectomy. It's obviously a critical medical procedure for breast cancer, but the impact goes way beyond the physical, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's often framed in terms of survival, which is paramount, of course. But for many women, it's also a profound loss. The breast is so tied up with identity, femininity, motherhood. There's often incredible resilience shown initially, but underneath.
There's an invisible scar, as the article puts it.
Exactly. Emotional withdrawal, avoiding social situations, this deep fear of judgment about their changed body. It can lead to real isolation, anxiety.
And intimacy. That seems like a particularly tough area to navigate. Cancer itself strains relationships, but mastectomy adds another layer, physically and emotionally.
It really does. Women might fear rejection. Partners might struggle with how to approach intimacy, how to offer support without causing hurt. It requires immense sensitivity and often guidance.
Which is why counseling is stressed as being so important, not just for the patient, but for the partner and family too.
Yes, crucially. Professional guidance can help rebuild communication, manage expectations, and make partners feel like active allies in the recovery, rather than helpless bystanders.
What about the physical side of recovery, beyond the main healing?
There are common issues like stiffness, numbness around the area, sometimes lymphedema, that's swelling in the arm. Physiotherapy, specific exercises, simple things like elevating the arm, they're all important. And lifestyle, diet, sleep, regular checkups is key for both recovery and reducing recurrence risk.
The sources also offer some really practical tips for listeners who might be going through this or supporting someone.
Yes, things like reconnecting socially, start small, maybe with a trusted friend first. Navigating intimacy, open communication is vital. Maybe consider couples counseling, start with non-sexual affection.
And self-compassion seems central.
Absolutely. Things like mirror exercises, journaling, actively reframing life as a new chapter rather than just focusing on loss. It's about rebuilding confidence piece by piece.
There's also the choice about reconstruction, right? Or choosing not to reconstruct.
Yes, and both are presented as equally valid, empowering choices. Reconstruction using implants or a woman's own tissue is one option, but choosing to go flat, to embrace the new body without reconstruction is equally valid and shouldn't be subject to societal pressure.
It comes back to that powerful quote cited, "Cancer took my breast, but it gave me back my voice." Finding strength and agency through the experience.
A very powerful sentiment.
Okay, shifting scales again, from the personal to the environmental. Let's talk about excess monsoon rainfall. Traditionally, more rain, especially for agriculture, was seen as good news. But climate change is changing that calculation, right? Especially with these intense bursts of rain we're seeing.
Definitely. That old idea that excess is always good just doesn't hold up anymore. We're seeing rainfall concentrated into shorter, much more destructive periods. Think about Tamil Nadu getting the northeast monsoon early this year.
What are the specific hazards of these intense bursts? In cities, for instance.
In urban areas, it's chaos. All the concrete and asphalt mean the water has nowhere to go. Runoff overwhelms drains instantly. Flash floods, power cuts become common, and a major health risk: sewage systems overflow, mixing raw sewage with floodwaters in residential areas. We saw that horribly with Cyclone Mashong.
And for farming, it's not just about waterlogging, is it?
No, it's much more than that. Waterlogged soil damages roots, sure. But the intense flow washes away valuable topsoil, spreads fungal diseases rapidly, can literally wash away freshly planted seeds. And then you get stagnant water everywhere, perfect breeding grounds for mosquitoes carrying malaria, dengue, and for bacteria causing things like leptospirosis.
There's also an impact underground on infrastructure.
Yes, the rising water table. Prolonged heavy rain saturates the ground, raising the water level. This can destabilize building foundations, roads, bridges. It exerts pressure on basement walls, causing cracks, dampness, mold. The soil basically loses its strength to support structures.
And in South India, there's that added complexity with the Mullaperiyar Dam involving Kerala and Tamil Nadu.
Right, Kerala gets the southwest monsoon, Tamil Nadu gets the northeast. The Mullaperiyar Dam is physically in Kerala, but operated by Tamil Nadu.
So what happens when Kerala gets heavy rain in the dam's catchment area?
The reservoir fills up fast. For safety, Tamil Nadu then has to open the dam's shutters. That released water goes two ways. Some flows down the Periyar River in Kerala, potentially flooding areas like Idukki. But a lot is also diverted into Tamil Nadu's own Vaigai Dam system.
Ah, so Tamil Nadu gets a sudden, massive influx of water from Kerala right when his own rivers are likely swollen from the northeast monsoon.
Exactly. It's a double whammy. They're dealing with their own heavy rain, plus this concentrated release from Mullaperiyar. The current situation illustrates it perfectly. TN has all 13 shutters open, and areas in Theni district are already flooded. It shows how volume and intensity have turned excess rain into a recurring disaster management problem.
Staying with environmental issues, let's head north again. Stubble burning in Punjab, a persistent source of air pollution.
And the core issue remains that very tight window, just 3 weeks or so between harvesting rice and needing to plant wheat. Burning seems like the quickest, cheapest option for many farmers.
But the data this year is weirdly contradictory, isn't it? Fewer incidents reported, but more area burned.
It is paradoxical. Government figures, especially from Punjab, show a big drop in the number of fire incidents detected, like 70% fewer cases compared to last year, down to around 11,000 from over 36,000.
Okay, sounds like progress, but
But satellite analysis looking at the total area scorched shows it actually increased slightly, from 19.1 lakh hectares last year to 19.17 lakh this year.
how can both be true? Fewer fires, but more land burned.
The limitations of the satellites are key here. The thermal sensors, like MODIS and VIRES, that detect the heat of active fires, only pass overhead a few times a day. They miss fires started late in the day or at night. Cloud cover, haze, smoke can block their view too.
And farmers might be adapting their burning practices?
Possibly. Burning smaller patches or for shorter durations might make individual fires harder for the thermal sensors to register as distinct incidents. Plus, there's suggestion farmers might be covering up burnt areas quickly.
So how do we get a more accurate picture? Relying just on incident counts seems misleading.
Experts like Dr. Kaiwal argue strongly for integrating different types of data. You need the thermal sensors, yes, But you also need optical sensors like Sentinel-2. These don't just look for heat. They look for the physical evidence, the burn scars, the change in land color after a fire.
And ground checks.
Essential. Ground surveys are needed to validate what the satellites think they're seeing. It's the only way to get a truly robust data set.
And one final point, more area burned doesn't automatically mean more pollution, right?
That's a crucial nuance. Emissions depend not just on area, but also on how intensely the fire burned, how much stubble fuel was there, and how long it lasted. So just looking at area alone doesn't give the full air quality impact picture.
Okay, from one pollution issue to a proposed and seemingly controversial solution. Delhi's plan for cloud seeding to fight air pollution. The sources we read are calling it science misapplied. Why?
Well, first, the basic meteorology doesn't fit. Winter pollution in Delhi happens under specific conditions. Dry air moving in from the continent, stable high-pressure systems. This traps pollution near the ground. Crucially, the atmosphere is usually too stable and dry for the kind of clouds you need for seeding to even form.
So you can't seed if there are no suitable clouds.
Exactly. Cloud seeding doesn't create clouds, it modifies existing ones. And the haze you see in Delhi is mostly pollution particles, not the right kind of water vapor-rich clouds needed for rainmaking. Plus, the evidence that seeding reliably increases rainfall is actually pretty weak, scientifically contested.
And even if it did produce some rain, the effect on pollution would be
Temporary at best, maybe wash the air for a day or two, then pollution levels bounce right back because the sources haven't changed. It's why experts are calling it a gimmick, like those smog towers. It distracts from tackling the root causes.
Are there direct risks involved in the seeding process itself?
There are environmental questions. The materials used are typically things like silver iodide or sodium chloride. Silver iodide works by acting as a nucleus for ice crystals to form. While used in small amounts, the long-term effects of these substances accumulating in soil and water aren't fully understood.
And there's a big ethical question about responsibility, isn't there?
A huge one. What happens if, shortly after a seeding operation, there's unexpected flooding or crop damage? Who is liable? Even if the seeding wasn't the actual cause, the public perception will inevitably link them. That erodes trust in both science and the government carrying it out.
So if cloud seeding isn't the answer, what is?
It comes back to the hard systemic work. Cleaner transportation, shifting to sustainable energy sources, much better waste management, smarter urban planning to reduce emissions from vehicles, factories, construction sites, power plants, and tackling those seasonal fires like stubble burning. There are no magic bullets.
So essentially, spending money and attention on cloud seeding is seen as an ethical failure, diverting resources from proven, necessary actions.
That's the core criticism. It's a costly spectacle that avoids the difficult, long-term solutions that are actually needed.
All right, for our final piece, let's look at Sweden and the lessons from its tough economic medicine back in the 1990s. There's that striking image of the finance minister in a cheap, roach-infested hotel.
Goran Persson, yes. It perfectly symbolized the absolutely no extravagance approach they had to take, and the crisis was incredibly severe.
How bad did it get?
Really bad. It was a perfect storm: banking crisis, currency crisis, debt crisis all at once. Government debt basically doubled to 80% of GDP. The budget deficit hit 12%. The central bank even briefly jacked up interest rates to an unbelievable 500% to try and save the currency.
Wow. So the response had to be drastic.
Austerity, right?
Massive austerity. Cuts worth about 8% of GDP across the board: welfare, defense, education. It was painful. The economy actually shrank for 3 years straight. Unemployment shot up.
But they didn't just cut spending, they made structural changes too. That seems key. Absolutely crucial for the long-term success. They brought in strict spending ceilings for government departments. They started budgeting for surpluses, not deficits. And the big one was pension reform.
How did they reform pensions?
They linked pension payouts more directly to things like market returns and how long people were living. Essentially, it shifted some of the risk of underfunding away from the state and onto individuals. It's a major reason why Sweden spends less of its GDP on pensions now, about 10.7% versus, say, France at 13%.
And today they're reaping the rewards of that discipline decades later.
Big time. Their debt is down to about a third of GDP. That gives them huge fiscal headroom. They can afford to announce big spending plans, boosting defense, investing billions in nuclear power, cutting income taxes, and still borrow money more cheaply than Germany.
So what are the takeaways for countries like France that are struggling with debt now?
The sources suggest maybe 3 hard lessons. 1, Sometimes things have to get really, really bad before politicians feel they have the public backing to make truly tough choices.
A crisis forces action.
Seems so, too. You absolutely need buy-in. From voters, from unions, even from the opposition parties. If the reforms are going to stick long-term, it can't just be imposed.
And the third lesson.
A dose of luck helps. Sweden benefited hugely from the timing. The global IT boom and wave of globalization in the late 90s helped pull their economy forward after the reforms. Today's global environment, much more protectionist, might make that kind of recovery harder.
It's a fascinating contrast, isn't it? Sweden's long, hard road to fiscal strength versus, say, the allure of quick fixes like cloud seeding that ultimately solve nothing structurally, really makes you think about what kind of solutions we demand and what we're willing to endure.
A very pertinent question indeed.
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.